20. Black actors who lost it all to addiction. How many legends must we lose before the message finally sinks in? Addiction destroys everything in its path. Fame, fortune, family, even the brightest futures have been ripped away by substances. From beloved comedians setting themselves on fire in a haze of cocaine to soulful voices silenced too soon. These are not just tabloid scandals, they're heartbreaking realities. And behind every fall is a lesson the world too often ignores. Which of these stories will shock you the most? Stay with us, hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence for more untold truths. Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor's life was a paradox. He made millions laugh, yet his own existence was haunted by deep pain and relentless addiction. Born in 1940 in Peoria, Illinois, Pryor grew up in an environment riddled with poverty, brothels, and violence. Those early traumas shaped his comedy, which was raw, brutally honest, and revolutionary. By the 1970s, he was not just a comedian, but a cultural force, starring in classics like Sylve 1976 and Stir Crazy 1980, and becoming one of the highest-paid comedians in Hollywood. Yet, behind the curtain, cocaine was eroding his health, career, and relationships. In June 1980, Pryor's battle with addiction reached its most shocking moment. While freebasing cocaine at his Los Angeles home, he accidentally set himself on fire, suffering third-degree burns on over 50% of his body. The image of Pryor running down the street engulfed in flames became a grim metaphor for his life spiraling out of control. Though he later joked about the incident in his 1982 stand-up special Live on the Sunset Strip, claiming he ran the 100-yard dash in 4.3 seconds, the truth was sobering. His addiction wasn't just a bad habit. It was a destructive cycle that pushed him to the brink of death. Substance abuse bled into every part of his life. His performances became inconsistent, sometimes brilliant, sometimes chaotic. Hollywood executives, once eager to work with him, grew cautious. Pryor's personal life was equally tumultuous. He married 7 times to 5 different women, and often lashed out violently under the influence. Friends described him as paranoid, convinced people were trying to hurt or betray him. His cocaine-fueled rage alienated many who loved him most. Despite several stints in rehab, Pryor found it nearly impossible to stay clean for long. Still, he was remarkable in one respect: his honesty. At a time when few dared to admit struggles with drugs, Pryor confronted his demons on stage, transforming his pain into comedy. This vulnerability inspired future generations. Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock, and Dave Chappelle have all credited him as their blueprint. In this sense, Pryor's legacy wasn't just in his jokes, but in his unflinching candor about human weakness. By the late 1980s, Pryor's health was in irreversible decline. In 1986, he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a disease that gradually robbed him of his mobility. Doctors speculated that years of drug abuse may have worsened his condition. Though he continued to perform from a wheelchair, the fiery energy that once defined him dimmed. On December 10, 2005, Pryor died of a heart attack at the age of 65. Richard Pryor is remembered as one of the greatest comedians to ever live, a trailblazer who used humor to confront racism, politics, and personal chaos. Yet his story is also a cautionary tale. Even immense talent and groundbreaking influence cannot shield someone from the devastation of addiction. Pryor's genius will forever shine, but his downfall remains a reminder of how easily fame and fortune can be consumed by unchecked demons. Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr. was the embodiment of show business. Born in Harlem in 1925, he began performing as a child alongside his father and uncle in the Will Maston Trio. By the 1950s and 1960s, he was one of the most famous entertainers in America, a singer, dancer, actor, and impressionist who dazzled audiences with his versatility. As a member of the legendary Rat Pack with Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, he defined the glitz and glamour of Las Vegas. But behind the lights and applause was a man drowning in addiction that would eventually strip him of health, fortune, and peace of mind. The culture of the Rat Pack was built on excess. Nights of drinking, smoking, and gambling were not just indulgences, they were expected. For Sammy, what started as partying soon evolved into dependency. By the 1970s, he was reportedly drinking a bottle of vodka a day while also abusing prescription painkillers to keep up with his grueling performance schedule. Friends and colleagues noticed his decline, but intervention was not common in that era. Instead, the cycle of late-night shows, alcohol-fueled parties, and pills to keep functioning became a destructive routine. His body began to pay the price. Years of heavy smoking and drinking led to severe health issues. In the 1980s, doctors diagnosed him with throat cancer, almost certainly linked to his lifestyle. Treatment required the removal of his voice box, a devastating blow to an entertainer whose voice had been central to his career. For Sammy, losing his ability to sing was not just a medical loss, but a symbolic end to the life he once knew. Financial troubles compounded the tragedy. Davis was notorious for spending as quickly as he earned, often on lavish cars, jewelry, and gambling. By the late 1980s, he owed the IRS nearly $7 million, forcing him to keep working even as his health deteriorated. At a time when he should have been enjoying the rewards of decades in entertainment, he was instead hustling to pay off debts while fighting cancer. On May 16, 1990, Sammy Davis Jr. died at the age of 64, leaving behind a complicated legacy. His funeral drew a star-studded crowd. Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and countless Hollywood figures came to honor the man who broke racial barriers and dazzled audiences worldwide. Yet his story also served as a sobering reminder of how unchecked addiction can dismantle even the most extraordinary careers. Sammy Davis Jr. will forever be remembered for his incredible talent and his role in breaking down racial barriers in entertainment. He was the first black man to sleep in Las Vegas hotels where he performed, and his friendship with Sinatra helped challenge segregation. But just as memorable is the tragedy of his private life, proof that addiction does not discriminate even against icons who once seemed untouchable. Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston's rise was nothing short of legendary. Born in 1963 in Newark, New Jersey, into a musical dynasty, her mother Cissy Houston was a gospel star, and cousins Dionne Warwick and Dee Dee Warwick were chart toppers. Whitney was destined for greatness. By the mid-1980s, she was the best-selling female artist alive. Her debut album sold over 25 million copies worldwide, and her second album produced 7 consecutive #1 singles, a feat that remains unmatched. With a voice hailed as the voice of a generation, she won 6 Grammy Awards and sold over 200 million records globally. Yet behind her flawless performances and glamorous image, Whitney was locked in a battle with drugs that would ultimately cost her everything. Her struggles became most visible after her marriage to Bobby Brown in 1992. While many blame Brown for her downward spiral, those close to her revealed that Whitney had experimented with cocaine long before their relationship. Together, however, the couple's drug use intensified, turning into a destructive partnership fueled by fame, money, and denial. By the early 2000s, her voice, once described as a national treasure, was fraying. Concertgoers reported shaky performances, missed high notes, and erratic behavior that shocked fans who remembered her as the flawless singer of "I Will Always Love You." The turning point came in 2002 during her interview with Diane Sawyer. When asked about drug use, Whitney infamously replied, "Crack is whack," while admitting to marijuana pills and cocaine. The once untouchable superstar was publicly unraveling, and the world could no longer ignore the devastating impact of addiction. Her personal life suffered as well. Her daughter, Bobby Christina Brown, grew up amid chaos and instability. Custody battles, tabloid scandals, and violent altercations with Bobby Brown painted a picture far removed from the polished pop princess the world once adored. Whitney tried multiple stints in rehab but found it difficult to stay sober. Do you think Whitney's downfall was accelerated more by personal choices or by an industry that enabled her struggles instead of protecting her? On February 11, 2012, just hours before a pre-Grammy party at the Beverly Hilton Hotel in Los Angeles, Whitney was found lifeless in a bathtub. The coroner reported drowning as the official cause, but cocaine, Xanax, marijuana, and other substances were found in her system. She was only 48. Tragically, 3 years later, her daughter Bobby Christina was found in eerily similar circumstances, dying after months in a coma. Whitney Houston's story is one of breathtaking talent and heartbreaking decline. She was more than a singer. She was a cultural icon whose voice defined an era and inspired countless artists from Mariah Carey to Beyoncé. Yet her legacy is forever shadowed by addiction, a reminder that even the brightest stars can fall. Her life asks us to reconcile two truths: she was both a once-in-a-century talent and a woman who fought demons she could not conquer. Todd Bridges. Todd Bridges became a household name in the late 1970s as Willis Jackson on the hit sitcom Different Strokes. Alongside co-stars Gary Coleman and Dana Plato, he captured America's heart with a show that tackled tough issues through the lens of comedy. By the time he was in his early teens, Todd was a TV star with fame, money, and opportunities most kids could only dream of. But as history has shown, child stardom often comes with a dark side, and Todd's journey would soon spiral into a nightmare of addiction, crime, and near ruin. When Different Strokes ended in 1986, Bridges was just 21. Hollywood, however, wasn't kind to him. No longer the cute kid audiences adored, he struggled to find roles. Rejection and frustration pushed him toward drugs. By the late 1980s, he was heavily using cocaine and crack substances that quickly consumed his life. His addiction led to erratic behavior, legal troubles, and run-ins with the police. In 1989, he was arrested and charged with attempted murder after allegedly shooting a drug dealer. Though he was acquitted, the trial turned him into a tabloid spectacle, solidifying his fall from grace. As his peers advanced in their careers, Todd sank deeper. He became homeless at one point, spending nights on the streets, desperate for his next fix. The promise of his youth seemed wasted. The tragic irony was that his co-stars shared similar fates. Dana Plato battled drug addiction until her overdose death in 1999, and Gary Coleman's adult life was marked by financial ruin and health problems before his passing in 2010. It was as if the entire cast had been cursed by fame too soon. Despite the chaos, Todd Bridges' story carries a rare note of redemption. In the mid-1990s, after several stints in rehab, he finally got sober. He credits his family faith and determination for pulling him back from the edge. Slowly, he began rebuilding his life. His 2008 memoir, Killing Willis, From Different Strokes to the Mean Streets to the Life I Always Wanted, detailed his battles and served as a raw testimony about the price of fame and drugs. The book struck a chord with many who had faced similar struggles. Bridges managed to return to acting, making guest appearances on shows like Everybody Hates Chris and participating in reality TV. More importantly, he transformed into a motivational speaker, using his story to warn young people about the dangers of drugs and the pitfalls of early fame. Today, he stands as one of the few child actors from his generation who not only survived, but found stability after addiction. Todd Bridges' journey is proof that while addiction can destroy almost everything, recovery and resilience can write a new ending. His life reminds us that even in Hollywood, where fame often devours its own, redemption is still possible. Chris Kelly. Chris Kelly's story is one of youthful superstardom followed by a heartbreaking decline into addiction. Born in Atlanta in 1978, Kelly was just 13 years old when he and his best friend Chris Smith were discovered at a shopping mall by producer Jermaine Dupri. Together they became Criss Cross, the rap duo that skyrocketed to fame with their 1992 debut single Jump. The track spent 8 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, propelling their album Totally Crossed Out to multi-platinum success. Known for their signature backward clothes and energetic performances, the two young rappers became international icons almost overnight. Yet fame at such a young age came with pressures that neither Kelly nor Smith were prepared for. After their initial success, Criss Cross struggled to maintain momentum. By the late 1990s, their popularity faded, and Kelly was left searching for a new identity beyond the group. Attempts at solo projects and acting roles never reached the same heights. Without the structure and support that fame once provided, Kelly drifted into a lifestyle increasingly defined by drug use. Behind the scenes, heroin and cocaine became constants in his life. Unlike some celebrities whose struggles were visible to the public, Kelly's addiction was largely hidden. Friends and family knew he was using, but he kept it quiet, masking his pain from fans who still remembered him as the vibrant teen who made the world dance. Addiction, however, has a way of catching up. Kelly's health began to deteriorate, and his once bright future dimmed under the weight of dependency. At just 34 years old on May 1, 2013, Chris Kelly was found unresponsive in his Atlanta home. His mother performed CPR while waiting for paramedics, but he was pronounced dead shortly after arriving at the hospital. The coroner later confirmed a fatal speedball overdose heroin mixed with cocaine. The news shocked fans worldwide, many of whom had grown up with Criss Cross as a defining soundtrack of their youth. Chris Smith, his partner in Criss Cross and lifelong friend, was devastated. At Kelly's funeral, he called him not just a collaborator, but a brother. Jermaine Dupri also attended, paying tribute to the boy he had discovered decades earlier. The tragedy of Chris Kelly's story lies in the fact that he never had the chance to grow into his adult potential. He was frozen in the public's memory as the teenager with baggy jeans and infectious energy, while behind the scenes, he fought a losing battle with addiction. Chris Kelly's life is a reminder of how fleeting fame can be and how dangerous it is when young stars are thrust into the spotlight without the tools to cope with its pressures. His music lives on in nostalgic playlists and hip-hop history, but his story also stands as a cautionary tale about the silent grip of addiction that can steal even the brightest lights far too soon. Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown once embodied the dream every young performer wanted. Born in 1987 in Los Angeles, he rose to fame as Eddie Thomas on Disney Channel's That's So Raven, a show that pulled in millions of viewers and became one of the network's most successful franchises. Funny, charismatic, and full of energy, Orlando seemed destined for long-term stardom. He had a thriving acting career, voiceover work in The Proud Family and Family Matters, and even a budding rap career. But behind the polished Disney image, Orlando was slipping into a darker world, one dominated by drugs, legal trouble, and mental health battles that derailed everything he had built. The first cracks began to show in the late 2000s, as reports surfaced of erratic behavior and minor arrests. By the 2010s, the situation escalated. He was arrested multiple times for charges ranging from drug possession to domestic battery and burglary. Methamphetamine use became a recurring issue, altering both his physical appearance and mental state. Fans who remembered the charming Eddie Thomas were shocked to see photos of Orlando looking gaunt with damaged teeth and a vacant expression, a physical embodiment of the toll drugs can take. As the arrests piled up, so did bizarre public appearances. Orlando gave rambling interviews, claimed relationships with celebrities that never existed, and posted erratic videos online that worried fans and alarmed his former co-stars. Raven Simonet and other cast members from That's So Raven reportedly tried to help, but addiction often builds walls higher than compassion can climb. The once promising Disney star became more recognizable for mugshots than movie roles. Brown's story wasn't just about drugs, it was also about lost trust and opportunity. Disney distanced itself, and other networks refused to cast him, fearing his instability. Without steady work, his finances crumbled, and his reputation became synonymous with self-destruction. His rap career, once a potential outlet, was overshadowed by controversies and incoherent performances. Still, Orlando Brown's narrative isn't without attempts at redemption. In recent years, he has entered rehab multiple times, supported in part by Christian faith-based organizations. In 2020, he made headlines after joining a recovery program at a Texas church, claiming he had found God and was trying to turn his life around. Periods of sobriety showed glimpses of the old Orlando, witty, talented, and eager to rebuild. However, relapse has remained a constant threat, reminding the public that recovery is not a straight line, but a lifelong process. The tragedy of Orlando Brown lies not only in what was lost, but in what might still be possible. Unlike some stories of addiction that end in early death, Orlando's is ongoing. He is still young enough to rewrite his ending if sobriety and support hold firm. His cautionary tale illustrates how quickly fame can fade and how addiction, if unchecked, can consume even the brightest child stars. Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson is today celebrated as one of the most successful actors in film history, but his journey nearly ended before it truly began. Born in Washington, D.C. in 1948 and raised in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Jackson developed a love for acting while studying at Morehouse College in Atlanta. By the 1970s, he was active in theater, even appearing in plays alongside a young Morgan Freeman. Yet behind the curtain, he was sinking into the grip of addiction that almost cost him his career, his family, and his life. During the 1980s, as he struggled to find consistent acting work, Jackson turned heavily to cocaine and heroin. What began as a means of coping with disappointment quickly became an all-consuming habit. He was so deep in his addiction that his wife, actress LaTanya Richardson, feared for his safety and their young daughter Zoe's well-being. She moved him to the basement of their New York brownstone to keep him from endangering the household. Despite his natural charisma and talent, Jackson was unreliable, often high, and unable to meet his professional potential. The wake-up call came in 1991 when Jackson was rehearsing for a play and collapsed on stage from substance use. The humiliation, combined with an ultimatum from his wife, "Get clean or lose everything," forced him to seek help. He checked into rehab and, for the first time in years, committed seriously to recovery. Jackson later admitted that rehab didn't just save his marriage and career, it saved his life. It's remarkable that his breakthrough came immediately afterward. Fresh out of rehab, Jackson was cast as a crack addict in Spike Lee's Jungle Fever 1991. His raw, authentic portrayal of Gator Purify was so convincing that audiences assumed he had drawn directly from his own battles, and they were right. He won the Best Supporting Actor award at the Cannes Film Festival, his first major recognition. From there, his career skyrocketed, leading to unforgettable roles in Pulp Fiction, A Time to Kill Jackie Brown, and eventually the Star Wars and Marvel franchises. Unlike many celebrities who hide their demons, Jackson has spoken candidly about his addiction. He has said that sobriety gave him the discipline and clarity to handle the demands of fame. Decades later, he remains sober, crediting his family and faith for keeping him grounded. His career earnings have surpassed $27 billion in worldwide box office, making him one of the highest-grossing actors of all time. Samuel L. Jackson's story proves that addiction does not define the end of the road. With support, determination, and accountability, recovery is possible, and life on the other side can be brighter than imagined. For an actor who once nearly lost it all, Jackson's transformation into a Hollywood legend is not just a career triumph, but a testament to resilience and the power of second chances. Jada Pinkett Smith. Jada Pinkett Smith has long been a recognizable face in Hollywood. An actress, musician, talk show host, and wife of superstar Will Smith. Born in Baltimore in 1971, Jada broke through in the early 1990s with roles in A Different World, Menace to Society, 1993, and later Set It Off, 1996. By the time she starred in blockbusters like the Matrix series, she had cemented herself as a versatile and respected actress. On the outside, her life looked like a dream, fame, fortune, a marriage to one of the most bankable actors in the world, and two talented children, Jaden and Willow. But beneath the surface, Jada was waging a private war with alcohol and substance abuse that nearly consumed her. Jada has been brutally honest about her struggles, especially on her show Red Table Talk. She revealed that what started as casual drinking became a daily need. She would pour herself glasses of wine in the morning and sometimes pass out during the day, even on movie sets. She admitted to being a functional addict, able to work, socialize, and keep up appearances while privately depending on alcohol and other substances to get through the stress of life in the spotlight. What made her story especially striking is that many people around her had no idea how bad things had become. By her own account, she reached a dangerous point where she could no longer imagine life without alcohol. She was drinking hard liquor in large quantities, and at times also experimenting with drugs. The turning point came when she realized she was no longer in control, alcohol was controlling her. She didn't want to become another Hollywood cautionary tale, losing her career and family to addiction. Unlike many, Jada chose to quit cold turkey. She didn't go to rehab or join Alcoholics Anonymous. Instead, she relied on sheer willpower, determination, and a strong sense of responsibility toward her family. While her approach is not common and not always sustainable for others, she managed to maintain her sobriety. In interviews, she has emphasized how difficult it was to replace old habits with healthier coping mechanisms, but also how liberating it felt to finally live without depending on substances. Sobriety reshaped her life. Jada became more present as a mother and partner, and she found a deeper sense of purpose. Through Red Table Talk, she created a platform for open and vulnerable conversations about addiction, mental health, relationships, and personal growth. Her willingness to speak candidly about her darkest chapters has given others permission to share their own struggles without shame. Jada Pinkett. Smith's story is a reminder that addiction does not always look like rock bottom. It can live behind the most polished facades. Her journey shows that recovery is possible when honesty and courage replace denial. By confronting her demons head-on, she not only saved herself but also became an advocate for countless others struggling in silence. Ari Lennox. Ari Lennox, born Courtney Sinead Salter in Washington, D.C. in 1991, emerged as one of the most soulful voices of her generation. Signed to J. Cole's Dreamville label, she captivated audiences with her debut album, Shea Butter Baby, in 2019, which spawned hits like Shea Butter Baby and Whipped Cream. Known for her raw honesty and ability to blend R&B with neo-soul influences, Ari quickly built a loyal fan base. But as her career soared, she quietly fell into a dependence on alcohol that nearly overshadowed her success. The music industry often glamorizes nightlife, late shows, after-parties, and endless tours. For Ari, drinking started as a way to cope with pressure and stage anxiety. What began as casual cocktails after performances turned into a daily ritual. In her own words, she realized she was no longer drinking for fun, but to function. This shift marked the dangerous line between social drinking and addiction. By 2022, she felt trapped in a cycle of needing alcohol to manage both her career stress and personal struggles. She shocked many fans in 2023 when she posted on Instagram that she had been 7 months sober. Until then, most of her followers were unaware she had been battling addiction at all. Her confession resonated deeply, especially because she framed it not as a dramatic rock bottom, but as a gradual realization that alcohol was controlling her life. Ari's candor stood out in an industry where substance abuse is often hidden or downplayed. Her decision to quit wasn't easy. Unlike some who enter rehab or recovery programs, Ari chose a personal path toward sobriety. She distanced herself from environments that encouraged drinking and leaned on healthier habits to fill the void. She has spoken openly about how challenging it was to rebuild her identity without alcohol, but emphasized that her creativity and voice improved dramatically once she stopped drinking. Sobriety has given Ari Lennox a new perspective on her career and life. She's continued to release music tour and connect with fans in more authentic ways, showing that vulnerability can be a source of strength rather than weakness. In interviews, she acknowledges that she doesn't know if her sobriety will last forever, but is committed to living without dependency for as long as she can. Ari Lennox's story is still being written, but it already stands as a powerful example of confronting addiction early before it destroys everything. She reminds fans that success and fame do not immunize anyone from struggle. In fact, her honesty may help others recognize their own unhealthy habits and take steps toward change. For a rising star whose voice continues to grow in power, sobriety might be her greatest act of self-love. Future. Nayvadius Damon Wilburn, better known as Future, is one of the most influential rappers of the past decade. Born in Atlanta in 1983, he became a defining voice of trap music, creating anthems like Mask Off, March Madness, and Life is Good. His hypnotic beats and lyrics often painted vivid pictures of lean pills and a non-stop party lifestyle. To fans, Future was the poster child for drug culture in hip-hop. But behind the swagger and platinum records, he carried a secret one that would later expose the complicated relationship between art authenticity and addiction. During the height of his success in the mid-2010s, Future's music leaned heavily on themes of substance abuse. Songs like Codeine Crazy and Dirty Sprite 2 seemed to glorify lean and prescription drug use, and his fans embraced the imagery. Yet in 2019, Future shocked the industry when he admitted that he had stopped using hard drugs years earlier. He confessed that he was afraid to tell fans the truth sooner because he worried they would call him a fraud and stop listening to his music. His entire persona had been built around a lifestyle he no longer lived. This revelation raised important questions about the blurred lines between persona and reality in hip-hop. While Future once experimented with drugs, he realized the damage they were causing to his health and career. He quietly chose sobriety, but kept making music that spoke to the culture he helped create. Some critics accused him of hypocrisy, while others praised him for showing that art doesn't always have to mirror personal choices. Despite the controversy, Future's career has only grown stronger. He has earned multiple platinum albums, a Grammy Award, and collaborations with some of the biggest names in music, from Drake to Beyoncé. His ability to maintain credibility while distancing himself from drugs personally highlights the complexity of modern celebrity branding. For Future, it wasn't just about avoiding substances, it was about protecting his longevity in an industry where addiction has claimed too many lives too soon. By separating his personal life from his musical themes, Future created a blueprint for survival in hip-hop. He proved that it's possible to rap about the darkness of addiction without being consumed by it. His story reflects a growing awareness among artists that the culture of glorifying drugs carries real risks. Future's journey is less about losing everything to addiction and more about escaping its grasp before it was too late. He stands as a reminder that even when an artist's brand is tied to destructive habits, it's possible to rewrite the narrative. In doing so, Future preserved not only his career but also his health, choosing to remain a voice of his generation, rather than another casualty of it. Naomi Campbell. Naomi Campbell, born in London in 1970, became one of the most recognizable faces in fashion history. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, she was one of the original supermodels alongside Cindy Crawford, Christy Turlington, and Linda Evangelista. With her striking looks and commanding runway presence, Naomi graced countless magazine covers and walked for the world's top designers. Her career seemed unstoppable, but in the shadows, she was battling an addiction that threatened to derail everything she had built. Naomi has admitted that from 1998 to 2005, she struggled with alcohol and cocaine. The fashion industry of that era was notoriously indulgent, with endless parties, late nights, and a culture where excess often went unchecked. For Naomi, these pressures, combined with personal struggles, abandonment by her father, emotional turbulence, and the strain of constant fame, led her to self-medicate. Though she was at the peak of her career, addiction crept in silently, undermining her health and stability. The wake-up call came in 1999 during a photo shoot in New York when Naomi collapsed. Doctors attributed the episode to her substance use, and for the first time she was forced to confront the reality of her situation. Shortly afterward, she entered rehab, marking the beginning of her fight for sobriety. She joined Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous, crediting those programs with giving her tools to reclaim her life. What makes Naomi's story compelling is that she did not let addiction define her legacy. While many thought her career was finished, she returned to modeling with even greater determination. She became a fixture on the runway well into her 40s and 50s, an almost unheard-of feat in an industry obsessed with youth. Her resilience proved that recovery is not only about survival, it can also spark a second act. Naomi has also used her platform to advocate for awareness. She has spoken publicly about how addiction is not about weakness, but about pain and vulnerability. By admitting her struggles, she chipped away at the stigma surrounding substance abuse, especially in the fashion world where silence was once the norm. In later years, she also embraced philanthropy, launching initiatives to support African designers and humanitarian causes. Despite the chaos of her personal battles, Naomi Campbell has remained one of the most enduring figures in fashion. Her life is a testament to the possibility of redemption, that even after years of destructive behavior, one can rebuild, thrive, and inspire others. Her survival and continued dominance in modeling remind us that addiction does not have to be the final chapter. Instead, it can be a turning point toward strength, resilience, and reinvention. The Weeknd. Abel Tesfaye, known worldwide as The Weeknd, is one of the most successful artists of his generation. Born in Toronto in 1990 to Ethiopian immigrant parents, he grew up in a tough environment where drugs and street life were part of the landscape. Dropping out of high school at 17, he experimented heavily with substances, using them not just recreationally, but as a way to escape loneliness, anxiety, and depression. When he released his first mixtapes in 2011, House of Balloons, Thursday Echoes of Silence, critics immediately noticed the recurring themes: late nights, drugs, sex, and emotional isolation. His haunting atmospheric sound was built in part on the raw honesty of his experiences with narcotics. In interviews, The Weeknd admitted that drugs played a major role in his creative process. Songs like High for This and The Morning openly referenced substance-fueled nights, capturing the darkness of that lifestyle with unflinching detail. For many fans, this vulnerability made his music feel brutally authentic. However, the very substances that inspired his art also threatened to consume him. He once revealed that during his early years, he would take anything: MDMA, ketamine, cocaine mushrooms, Xanax, and that drugs became part of his daily routine. By the mid-2010s, as his fame exploded with hits like Can't Feel My Face and The Hills, Abel began to realize the cost of this lifestyle. Friends worried about his health, and he admitted that while substances fueled some creativity, they also dulled his spirit. In a 2021 GQ interview, he revealed that he had quit hard drugs, but still occasionally drank alcohol and smoked marijuana. This gradual shift reflected a man trying to balance his past with his present responsibilities as a global superstar. Do you think artists lose some of their creative edge when they step away from the destructive habits that once fueled their art? Or can sobriety actually unlock even greater potential? The Weeknd's story is striking because it shows both sides of addiction, the danger and the growth. His earlier music channeled raw experiences of being high, but his later work, including albums like After Hours 2020 and Dawn FM 2022, proved that he didn't need narcotics to create masterpieces. In fact, those albums became some of his most critically acclaimed and commercially successful projects, earning him billions of streams worldwide and cementing him as one of the defining voices of modern pop and R&B. What makes his journey unique is that he never pretended to be fully sober, but he also never glamorized his past. Instead, he presented it as part of his story, an evolution from chaos to clarity. He has shown fans that growth doesn't have to mean denying where you came from, but learning from it. The Weeknd's career stands as proof that addiction doesn't always end in tragedy. For him, it was a chapter that shaped his art but did not destroy his future. He continues to reinvent himself, selling out stadiums worldwide, while offering a rare glimpse into how one can walk away from the darkest temptations of fame and still shine brighter than ever. Kehlani. Kalani Ashley Parrish, born in Oakland, California in 1995, is one of R&B's most versatile voices. Known for blending soulful vulnerability with contemporary edge, Kalani rose to prominence after releasing her 2014 mixtape Cloud 19, and later her Grammy-nominated project You Should Be Here 2015. Her albums Sweet Sexy Savage, 2017 and It Was Good Until It Wasn't 2020 solidified her reputation as a fearless storyteller. Yet behind the music that resonated with so many, Kalani wrestled with a dependency that nearly cost her health and productivity and over-reliance on marijuana. Unlike many celebrities whose struggles involve hard drugs or alcohol, Kalani's addiction appeared deceptively harmless. Marijuana is often normalized, especially in the music industry, where it is glamorized as part of the creative process. For Kalani, what began as occasional use became daily consumption to the point where she admitted she was high almost all the time. The haze dulled her energy, slowed her focus, and interfered with her vocal strength. As an artist whose livelihood depended on her voice, she began noticing how her constant smoking strained her throat and lungs. The turning point came when she realized that marijuana was no longer a tool for relaxation, but a crutch that was controlling her routine. She took to TikTok to share her journey, admitting candidly that she had to reassess her relationship with weed. Her openness surprised fans, many of whom also struggled with similar dependencies. Unlike the dramatic collapses associated with other addictions, her story illustrated how even soft substances could silently erode one's health and potential. Kalani decided to quit, recognizing that sobriety offered her a clearer mind and stronger body. She emphasized that her decision wasn't about demonizing marijuana, it simply wasn't working for her lifestyle anymore. By stepping away, she regained her productivity, sharpened her creativity, and improved her stamina as a performer. Fans noticed the difference, praising her renewed energy during live shows and interviews. Her choice to speak openly about quitting weed is significant in an industry where artists often glorify constant intoxication. Rather than preach, she framed her story with humility. Marijuana wasn't evil, but it wasn't serving her. This perspective resonated with young fans who looked up to her as someone unafraid to admit vulnerabilities while still maintaining strength. Kalani's journey is ongoing, but her decision to prioritize sobriety over dependency highlights a crucial truth. Addiction doesn't always look like hitting rock bottom. Sometimes it's about recognizing that even normalized habits can quietly undermine your goals. By choosing clarity, she not only protected her health, but also set an example for others navigating similar struggles. For Kalani, leaving marijuana behind wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of a more intentional and empowered chapter. Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar Duckworth, born in Compton, California in 1987, has been hailed as one of the greatest lyricists of his generation. Rising from a community devastated by drugs, violence, and systemic inequality, Kendrick transformed his experiences into groundbreaking music that earned him 17 Grammy Awards and a Pulitzer Prize for Music in 2018, the first ever awarded to a rapper. Unlike many peers who experimented with substances, Kendrick made a conscious decision early in life to avoid alcohol and drugs altogether. His choice was not about image, but about survival. Growing up in Compton during the height of the crack epidemic, Kendrick witnessed firsthand how addiction tore families apart. Friends, neighbors, and even relatives fell victim to the cycle of drugs and incarceration. Rather than romanticize what he saw, he internalized those lessons, vowing not to follow the same path. His lyrics in songs like Swimming Pools Drank and ADHD are not celebrations of intoxication, but biting critiques of peer pressure, excess, and self-destruction. Through his art, he exposed the dark side of a culture that often glorified addiction. Kendrick has often said that sobriety gave him clarity and focus essential for his success. While touring, recording, and navigating fame, he avoided the distractions that claimed many other artists. He never saw substances as tools for creativity. Instead, he relied on his sharp observation and empathy to tell stories that resonated globally. His ability to write vividly about addiction without personally succumbing to it is a testament to his skill as both an artist and a storyteller. His stance has also influenced how he is perceived by fans. In a genre often associated with indulgence, Kendrick stands out as a role model for discipline and intentional living. While others have suffered career setbacks due to substance abuse, Kendrick has built a reputation for consistency and depth. Each album, from Good Kid, Made City to Pimp a Butterfly and Damn, has been a critical and commercial triumph, solidifying his place in hip-hop history. Kendrick's choice to remain sober doesn't mean his journey has been without challenges. He has spoken about struggles with depression, survivor's guilt, and the pressures of being seen as a prophet for his generation. Yet rather than turning to substances for escape, he channels those feelings into his music. That decision has allowed him to maintain longevity in an industry notorious for chewing up young talent. Kendrick Lamar's story is a reminder that addiction is not inevitable even in environments where it is normalized. By rejecting drugs and alcohol, he demonstrated that authenticity comes not from living every lyric, but from telling the truth about the world around you. His legacy is not only in his accolades, but in the discipline and integrity that set him apart, a man who rose from the streets of Compton to global acclaim without ever succumbing to the very temptations that destroyed so many lives around him. Flavor Flav. William Jonathan Drayton Jr., better known as Flavor Flav, is one of hip-hop's most recognizable figures. As the clock-wearing hype man of Public Enemy, he helped revolutionize rap in the late 1980s and 1990s. With hits like Fight the Power and 911 is a Joke, his energetic personality became part of the group's DNA. Beyond music, Flav's wild persona made him a reality TV staple in shows like Flavor of Love. But behind the laughter and outrageous antics, Flav was hiding a decades-long struggle with addiction that nearly destroyed him. For over 18 years, Flavor Flav battled a crippling cocaine addiction. He admitted to spending as much as $600 a day on drugs at the height of his dependency. His substance abuse led to multiple arrests, time in jail, and financial ruin. Despite fame and fortune, he found himself trapped in a cycle of relapse and self-destruction. Friends and fellow musicians worried that his story would end like so many other hip-hop legends, another life claimed by addiction. Flav's drug use affected every aspect of his life. His relationships with his children were strained, his finances evaporated, and his credibility as an artist and public figure plummeted. Even as he entertained millions on television, he privately struggled to break free from the grip of crack and cocaine. By the late 2000s, many assumed his downward spiral was irreversible. The turning point came in the 2010s, when Flav finally committed to getting clean. After multiple attempts, he achieved sobriety in 2020, proudly announcing his milestones on social media. He credited therapy, both traditional counseling and even AI-assisted therapy, for keeping him accountable during tours and high-pressure moments. His openness about using all available tools to stay sober showed a willingness to adapt and fight for his life. Since then, Flavor Flav has become an advocate for recovery. On World Mental Health Day 2022, he spoke candidly about the connection between mental health and addiction, encouraging others to seek help without shame. For someone once defined by excess, his transparency about sobriety has been both surprising and inspiring. Today, Flavor Flav continues to perform, appearing with Public Enemy and celebrating his survival. He acknowledges the years lost to drugs, but focuses on the future, highlighting the joy of reconnecting with his children and maintaining his health. His story proves that no matter how far someone falls, recovery is possible with persistence and support. Flavor Flav's journey stands as a reminder that addiction doesn't discriminate. It can strike even the loudest, most joyful personalities. His resilience is proof that sobriety doesn't mean losing your identity. Instead, it can amplify the parts of yourself that addiction once silenced. For Flav, the fight for sobriety isn't just about saving his own life. It's about showing others that redemption is always within reach. Tyler, the Creator. Tyler Gregory. Okanma, better known as Tyler the Creator, has always been one of hip-hop's most unpredictable innovators. Born in 1991 in Ladera Heights, California, he first exploded onto the scene as the ringleader of the collective Odd Future shocking audiences with dark humor, chaotic performances, and raw, unfiltered lyrics. Many assumed that someone with such an eccentric and rebellious image must have been fueled by drugs or alcohol. Yet Tyler stands out in hip-hop precisely because he has chosen the opposite path. He has never embraced substances, and that decision has shaped his career in powerful ways. Tyler has often spoken about how little interest he has in intoxication. He has tried marijuana twice in his life and admitted he hated it. He has also stated publicly that he has never been drunk. While many artists rely on alcohol or drugs to loosen up socially or creatively, Tyler built his empire while completely sober. Instead of late-night parties and blurred memories, he has chosen clarity, discipline, and imagination as his tools. From Goblin 2011 to Flower Boy 2017 and his Grammy-winning Igor 2019, Tyler has proven that artistic genius doesn't need chemical enhancement. In interviews, he's expressed confusion about why anyone would want to be out of it when they could be fully immersed in life's experiences. His live shows, music videos, and fashion ventures under Golf Wang all reflect his boundless energy, an energy fueled not by substances, but by relentless creativity and curiosity. Tyler's rejection of drugs and alcohol has also influenced his perspective on success. While many peers have struggled with rehab overdoses or public scandals, he has quietly built a multi-million-dollar brand, headlined festivals worldwide, and earned respect as both a rapper and a producer. His consistency, work ethic, and ability to reinvent himself every album are tied to his sobriety. By avoiding the pitfalls of addiction, he has been able to focus on honing his craft without distraction. Interestingly, Tyler has used his outsider status to his advantage. In a genre often associated with indulgence, he flipped the narrative. Being sober became part of his uniqueness. Instead of being pressured into conformity, he embraced individuality, inspiring fans who may also feel disconnected from mainstream stereotypes. His career demonstrates that authenticity doesn't come from living the expected lifestyle, but from staying true to yourself, no matter how unconventional that may seem. Tyler the Creator's story challenges the myth that drugs and alcohol are necessary for creativity. His success shows that clarity, originality, and discipline can produce some of the most exciting art of a generation. In a culture where many lose their way, Tyler has thrived by charting his own sober path, reminding us that real rebellion sometimes means simply saying no. 50 Cent. Curtis James Jackson III, better known as 50 Cent, is one of hip-hop's most iconic figures. Born in Queens, New York in 1975. His early life was defined by hardship. His mother, a drug dealer, was murdered when he was just 8 years old, leaving him to be raised by his grandparents. By his teenage years, 50 Cent himself was dealing drugs, caught up in the very environment that claimed so many lives around him. But while he participated in the drug game, he made one life-changing decision that set him apart. He never used the substances he sold. In interviews, 50 Cent has been remarkably candid about his abstinence. Despite building a career filled with references to hustling guns and survival, he has consistently stated that he has never smoked, never used drugs, and doesn't drink alcohol beyond the occasional taste. He has explained that watching family members and neighbors spiral into addiction convinced him early on that drugs would destroy his life. Instead, he viewed them purely as a business, profitable but deadly if misused. This discipline extended into his music career. In 2000, just before his big break, 50 Cent was infamously shot 9 times outside his grandmother's house. His recovery required immense physical and mental strength. Many might have turned to painkillers or substances to cope, but 50 stayed focused. His survival became a central part of his mythology, fueling the hunger that led to get rich or die tryin'. 2003, one of the best-selling rap debuts of all time, with over 12 million copies sold worldwide. At the same time, he built an empire that stretched beyond music into clothing, film, and highly lucrative investments like vitamin water, which earned him an estimated $100 million when Coca-Cola bought the brand. His abstinence gave him a business edge. While peers stumbled with scandals and rehab, 50 maintained clarity and control, turning his hustler mentality into corporate power. Critics have sometimes accused him of hypocrisy for promoting alcohol brands like F&N Vodka despite not drinking himself. Yet 50 has argued this is simply good business. To him, separating personal choice from branding is part of being a mogul. His decision not to consume the products he profits from only underscores his self-control. Today, 50 Cent stands as one of hip-hop's most successful businessmen with a net worth estimated in the hundreds of millions. Unlike many artists of his era who fell victim to addiction, his story is one of avoiding the trap altogether. While his career has had its controversies from feuds to bankruptcy filings, substance abuse has never been part of the chaos. 50 Cent's legacy is unique. He turned his proximity to drugs into fuel for storytelling and empire building without ever succumbing to their grip. His life challenges the notion that survival in hip-hop requires living the drug-fueled lifestyle. Instead, it shows that sometimes the smartest move in the game is staying sober enough to play it better than everyone else. Tyra Banks. Tyra Banks, born in 1973 in Inglewood, California, became a trailblazer in the fashion world. By the early 1990s, she was one of the first black supermodels to break into the elite circles of high fashion, walking for Chanel, Dior, and Valentino. Later, she became a household name as a Victoria's Secret angel and Sports Illustrated cover star. With her magnetic presence, she expanded beyond modeling, creating and hosting America's Next Top Model and The Tyra Banks Show, for which she won 2 Daytime Emmy Awards. To many, she embodied glamour and success. But unlike countless celebrities who struggled with substance abuse, Tyra's story is remarkable because she made the conscious choice to never fall into addiction at all. In interviews, Tyra has explained that she has never experimented with drugs and has only had a sip of alcohol once in her life at the age of 12. She admitted that she doesn't enjoy the taste and never saw the appeal of drinking. This stance is particularly striking considering the fashion industry's culture during her rise, when models were often pressured into partying and using substances to keep up with the fast-paced lifestyle. While many peers fell victim to addiction, Tyra stood firm, resisting both peer pressure and industry expectations. Her abstinence wasn't just about personal preference. It reflected her long-term vision. She has said she doesn't have an addictive personality, which helped her avoid dangerous habits. Instead of turning to drugs or alcohol, she poured her energy into business ventures and personal growth. This discipline played a key role in her ability to transition from model to mogul, building a brand worth millions and mentoring a new generation of models through ANTM. Tyra's clean lifestyle also contributed to her longevity. While many models' careers faded quickly due to burnout or substance abuse, she remained relevant for decades, constantly reinventing herself. Beyond modeling and television, she earned a degree from Harvard Business School's Owner-President Management program, proving her commitment to knowledge and entrepreneurship. Her decision to remain substance-free also gave her a unique voice in conversations about addiction. Rather than judging others, she has expressed compassion for those who struggle, acknowledging that her ability to avoid those traps may come from her natural disposition and upbringing. By sharing her perspective, she has encouraged young people to see that success doesn't require following destructive trends. Tyra Banks stands as a counter-narrative in a long list of celebrity cautionary tales. She proves that you can thrive in industries notorious for drugs and alcohol without ever touching them. Her journey is a testament to discipline, foresight, and authenticity. By staying true to herself, she built not only a career, but a legacy, one defined not by addiction, but by empowerment and resilience. Pharrell Williams. Pharrell Lanskylo Williams, born in 1973 in Virginia Beach, has built one of the most influential careers in music, fashion, and culture. As a producer, songwriter, and performer, he has worked with legends across genres from Jay-Z and Beyoncé to Daft Punk and Justin Timberlake. His hits like Happy Get Lucky and Blurred Lines have defined entire eras of pop music. With 13 Grammy Awards and even Academy Award nominations, Pharrell is more than a musician. He is a cultural architect. What makes his journey even more remarkable is that he accomplished all of this without leaning on drugs or alcohol, despite working in an industry often fueled by excess. Pharrell has openly shared that his relationship with substances is virtually non-existent. He has admitted that he has only been drunk 9 times in his life and tried weed brownies once. That's it. For someone who has spent decades in recording studios, after-parties, and tours, spaces where drugs and alcohol are everywhere, his decision to abstain stands out. He has said that he simply never saw the appeal, and that maintaining a clear mind was essential for his creativity and decision-making. This clarity has been central to his longevity. While many artists fade after a few years, Pharrell has remained relevant for over 3 decades, constantly reinventing himself. His work with the Neptunes shaped hip-hop and R&B in the early 2000s, while his solo career and fashion ventures with brands like Billionaire Boys Club and collaborations with Chanel and Adidas have kept him at the forefront of global culture. Sobriety gave him the ability to focus on building an empire instead of recovering from the toll of indulgence. Pharrell himself credits much of his success to staying true to his instincts and keeping his priorities straight. While others lost time to addiction or scandals, he preserved his energy for creativity and innovation. His outlook on life has always been positive and forward-thinking, something fans noticed in both his music and his personal demeanor. His song, Happy, became not only a chart-topping anthem, but also a reflection of his philosophy, choosing joy, clarity, and intention over chaos. Beyond music, Pharrell's substance-free approach has influenced how he raises his family and approaches philanthropy. He often speaks about giving back to the community, especially through education initiatives in his hometown of Virginia. His message is consistent. True success is not about temporary highs, but about creating something lasting. Pharrell Williams proves that you don't need drugs or alcohol to thrive in entertainment. His career shows that discipline, vision, and authenticity can sustain both artistry and business. In an industry where addiction has claimed too many lives, Pharrell's path is refreshing, an example of how choosing clarity can keep you not only successful but also timeless. Jennifer Hudson. Jennifer Hudson's story is remarkable, not because she overcame addiction, but because she never let it touch her life at all. Born in Chicago in 1981, Hudson rose from humble beginnings to global stardom, first gaining attention as a finalist on American Idol in 2004. Just 2 years later, she stunned the world with her Academy Award-winning performance as Effie White in Dreamgirls 2006. Since then, she has become a Grammy-winning singer, an actress with critical acclaim, and even an EGOT winner, earning Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony Awards. In an industry where substance abuse stories are common, Hudson stands out as someone who has built a towering career while consciously avoiding drugs and alcohol altogether. In multiple interviews, Hudson has confirmed that she has never taken a drink of alcohol nor experimented with recreational drugs. Her reasoning is simple: she never felt the need. She has often said that watching others struggle with dependency convinced her that substances were a path she didn't want to walk. While many peers turn to alcohol or drugs to cope with stress, fame, or loss, Hudson leaned on her faith, family, and work ethic. Her ability to stay grounded may also be connected to the tragedies she endured, including the 2008 murders of her mother, brother, and nephew. Rather than spiral into destructive coping mechanisms, Hudson focused on resilience and healing. Her abstinence has even shaped her work as an actress. When portraying Effie White in Dreamgirls or other roles requiring her to embody characters battling personal demons, she studied how addiction impacts people. Because she had no first-hand experience, she listened to those who had suffered and drew from their testimonies, showing empathy and commitment to authenticity. This approach proved successful. Her Effie was so powerful that she won the Oscar, Golden Globe, BAFTA, and Screen Actors Guild Award for Best Supporting Actress. Hudson's discipline also strengthened her music career. Her albums, live performances, and Broadway appearances have been consistent with no scandals about canceled shows or rehab stints disrupting her path. Her clarity has allowed her to focus on longevity rather than short-term highs. This discipline contributed to her becoming only the second Black woman in history to achieve EGOT status in 2022. While many stories in entertainment revolve around self-destruction, Jennifer Hudson represents another narrative, one of prevention, self-control, and resilience. She shows that it is possible to reach the highest levels of fame without leaning on substances to cope. Her journey reminds us that strength can come not only from fighting addiction, but also from choosing never to start. In a world where so many stars have been lost, Hudson stands as a beacon of what discipline, faith, and vision can achieve when paired with undeniable talent. Addiction has stolen dreams, silenced voices, and rewritten the destinies of some of Black Hollywood's most gifted stars. From Richard Pryor's fiery battles to Whitney Houston's tragic final curtain call, these stories remind us that fame does not protect anyone from the grip of dependency. Yet we also saw resilience in Samuel L. Jackson, Naomi Campbell, and others who fought their way back. The question remains, are these cautionary tales enough to change how we view addiction in entertainment? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence.